So I'm in my 9x9 by 8 foot studio space, and this is where you may see me make a lot of my videos. And it's a small space, but I do have a 7.1.4 Dolby Atmos system in here. I know it's crazy. I'll have to show you guys that in another video. But BenQ reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to review their GP500 because it's a 4 LED projector. I was like, you know, I'm kind of curious. What is that 4 LED all about? So I figured this would be a good opportunity to try out this projector here in this room. Even though it's a small space, because I have this Dolby Atmos system, I figured, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could use all of these speakers to watch a nice movie in this room. So I reached out to the guys at Elite Screens to provide a screen. So thank you to Elite Screens for doing that. Thank you for BenQ for allowing me to do this video. They have not reviewed this prior. I'm allowed to say whatever I want about these products, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So the problem is my computer is right here. Now, where do I have space to put a projector? That's right. I'm gonna try to do it on this wall behind me. And yeah, I know, it's kind of crazy. So part of this is that I can move the soundstage 180 degrees to face this way. So it's kind of a special thing that I have going on here. I'll leave a link to the products in the description. So I do have a few restrictions. So I don't want the screen to go too low, and I also don't want it to be too high. You can see my chair, my head is right around here. So when I spin this around to view the screen, this is not very far. This is like 5 feet away. So a 92-inch image from 5 feet away, I think is gonna be pretty amazing. Let's see what happens. It's show and tell time. I actually have a ton of different BenQ projectors. My first projector was their 2050, and I thought that that thing was awesome. I still have it, and it's still working to this day, still awesome. I also have the BenQ TK850, the BenQ HT3050, and their 3550 ultra short throw projector. Am I missing any? No, I think that's it. BenQ has always been known for great value and great colors out of the box, and this one is no exception. It was a requirement that it was a roll-up screen. It's gonna actually hang from the ceiling here, and the reason being is that I film with this background, so I don't want the screen to cover this 100% of the time. I only want it when I need to watch something. So ideally, your eye line should be about 1/3 of the way up the screen, so the screen should be down here, but as you can tell, I have some stuff in the way here. So it's gonna be a little bit higher. It's gonna be fine, it's fine. Now behind me here, you can see that I have a wall with a bunch of just 4-inch thick foam, and that's to absorb a lot of the reflections, the sound that comes from my voice. The plan is I'm gonna mount the projector right about here, probably as close as I can to this wall, so that I can project a 92-inch image from this short distance. Sometimes you want to put the projector first, sometimes you want to put the screen first. In my case, I don't really have a choice. The screen has to go here. There's no other option. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna mount the screen first, and then I will adjust the height and the angle of the projector accordingly and just try to make it fit on that screen. So I think what I'll do is I will move my watch case. This is the Collector from Holman Hadfield, if you're wondering, and just kind of move everything off the second tier here. That'll allow this to drop down further, and so I won't have to look up as high. So the next thing I need to do is to get this mounted up there. And if you're wondering how I'm doing a 7.1.4 here using a computer, there's a little sneak peek. Haven't done my wire management, so don't look at that. All right, so the idea is I'm just gonna go ahead and hold this thing up. I have it set to ceiling mount, so it's upside down right now. I'm just gonna hold it up and kind of get an idea just how it'll look. Oh yeah, this is gonna be awesome. And I might even mount this tonight. So I have been testing it throughout the day. I am impressed with how it looks, the image, the screen, everything. I'm happy with this whole setup. The projector is up and running, and I want to watch a movie. So this projector has a ton of features. Instead of pretending like I can remember all of them, I'm just gonna look at the website and kind of comment on my experience with each of them. Okay, so it says here 8.3 million distinct pixels. It's a 4K 3840 by 2160 resolution. And yes, it is crisp, it is clear, no doubt about that. Like I mentioned before, the colors are excellent. They do support a wider color gamut. Here they're talking about DCI-P3. It talks about the auto calibration technology. I've tried turning that on and off. I couldn't really tell too much of a difference. I'm not sure if that has to do with maybe matching maybe your your projector screen color. You know, if you have a yellowish type of wall or screen, it might be able to adjust for something like that. It's just not something that I noticed easily turning it on and off. One thing to note is that it does require you to restart after you turn this on and off. So seems like it's doing something. BenQ likes to use this term Trovolo for its sound system. And so they say it's a 4-directional sound output, 360 sound field. Okay, so I'm an audio guy. I'm gonna be very critical when it comes to the sound. And I can say, and sound is pretty impressive from the standpoint of that it comes from this single projector. From as far as 360 sound field, I don't know about that. I would much prefer the 11 speakers that I have here plus the 2 subs, but it's better than most TVs I've ever heard and surprisingly good. Like, I mean, a decent amount of bass. Yeah, it's surprising. Let's just say that. Let's just put it this way. When the kids come in here to watch their cartoons, I don't bother to set up the 7.1.4 system. I just let it play out of these speakers and they don't care. I am pretty impressed with the sound on this. Not that I would want to use that because I have a 7.1.4 system in here, but the sound coming out of that, the amount of bass, the deep bass extension, it's surprising and it's clear, and there is actually a sense of imaging. You can tell when something's on the left and right. And so they did a good job with that. And it might be because it's near the ceiling, so I'm getting extra bass with it near the walls, things like that. But it's just something that I think that you guys should know, that if you wanted to use these by themselves, I think that you'd get a pretty good sound. Better than most TVs that I've heard, that's for sure. Because there's enough internal volume, because of the shape, they've left enough airspace for there to be bass in there. It's pretty amazing. If this is a system that you would use, let's say, you know, at a family party, in the backyard, I think that the sound is going to be more than enough in that situation. And it is cool that you can move the sound from one side to the other depending on where you have the projector. Of course, there's going to be certain locations where it's best, but it can adjust for the sound somewhat. It says here, locate your sweet spot. It doesn't do it automatically. You actually have to tell it where you're sitting relative to the projector. And like I was saying earlier, it can change the sound based on where you're at. And yeah, it does a decent job. Out of these 3 pictures, center is still gonna give you the best possible sound. Now, speaking of sound, one thing I have to mention is that the fan on this is kind of loud. Yeah, I would say louder than most of the other projectors that I have. And it depends on the mode that you're in, but I did notice that the sound was a bit louder, and it might just be because this room is quiet. I have a lot of room treatment in here. And so maybe that's what it is, and I'm just noticing it more. It's also a smaller room and I'm closer to it, but maybe something that you should be aware of. So I don't know if you hear that difference, but when it is in HDR mode, the fans kind of spin up. So right now it's in HDR10 mode. So you can hear switching out of that mode, it already changes the sound. It's not really an issue if I'm watching a movie and there's sound coming out, but it's when there's nothing playing and it's just me and the projector. Okay, so it does have these auto 2D keystone features. So for keystoning, it's not something I usually prefer. It's best if you can put it in the right position, although you can't always do that, in which case you have to use some of these features. And the reason just being, when you use these keystoning features, you are losing a bit of resolution, a bit of sharpness. And BenQ has been pretty good about retaining the sharpness. It's just that any amount that you're reducing, you know, it's not something that you really want to do. But if you have to, it's there for you. So for the screen fit, I was never able to get that to work for some reason on mine. Not that I had to, because I just placed it in the correct position so that it would fit naturally. And it does have a zoom lens, which allows you to kind of get that fitting correctly anyway, using the optical lens instead of doing it digitally. So object avoidance is kind of funny. I guess if you had a picture in the way, it can kind of see that and make sure that it's not gonna put the picture there. Maybe just move the picture if you're serious. So again, this is a feature that you would use in a scenario where you're using this at a party and it's not a permanent situation, and you may have to use something like this to get the best possible picture. But for the most part, if there's something in the way, just move it. Now, this is one feature I really like, the autofocus feature, because it's very helpful. I've found that with other projectors, it's really hard to tell when it's in perfect focus. Whereas this has a camera on it, and when you hit autofocus, it throws up a screen with various patterns on there, and then it can tell using the camera when it's the sharpest. And I've found that it's pretty accurate. You may be able to adjust it slightly and get even a slightly better sharpness, but for the most part, it works pretty well. It can go from 100, 120 to 150 inch, and these here are the distances that you will need. My room is a fairly small room, and I'm able to get a 92 inch image, no problem. The cool thing is also that zoom feature that I was talking about will allow you to have a range, so it doesn't have to be specific. So for 100 inch, it could be anywhere from 7.3 feet to 9.4 feet, and so anything in between will also work. So it does come with a Android streaming stick that actually fits inside, so that was kind of cool. I didn't know that. The BenQ V3050i, the ultra short throw, also uses the exact same stick, but there's no location to hide it like you can on this one. So I thought that was a cool thing. It was using Android TV, and it was a pretty fast viewing experience. Nothing about it felt overly sluggish, and so I thought that was cool. Using the single remote, you can control the Android TV experience, as well as going into the settings and adjusting them on the projector itself. I still would prefer to use what I have here, which is an Apple TV 4K. I also have an NVIDIA Shield. Those are more powerful devices and allows me to do more than this can do, but from an out-of-the-box experience, I think it's pretty good. Here you see the back, and you do have two HDMI ports, one ARC channel, so one audio return channel, so that's for ARC, and you have SPDIF 3.5 millimeter audio out, as well as two powered USBs here. I should also mention that it does support HDR10, and from what I see, the colors are pretty accurate out of the box. I've tried much more expensive projectors that don't even come close to how accurate this is. By the way, I should mention the price. It's $16.99 as of right now, and for this price, it's not something that you would probably hire someone to come and calibrate, so it's nice that it does come calibrated pretty well out of the box. So this is rated at 1500 max lumen, and one of the questions here is whether it's bright enough, and in my experience, the answer would be yes. So I compared this back to back in the light control theater versus the BenQ TK850, which is rated at 3000 lumen. So you would expect that one to be much brighter. What you see here in the pictures, this projector here actually seemed brighter in some scenes, and I think it might be because of that extra LED in the 4 LED. They have an extra white LED there, and so when there was white in the background, this one was actually very bright to the point where it was lighting up the rest of the room. It was kind of interesting because there was a perceived brightness that went along with it. So even though the contrast is not as good as the TK850, and also the black levels are not as good as you can see from this picture here. So the TK850 had better black levels than this one, and you can tell here in the picture, it's pretty obvious that that is true. But from normal watching, what I noticed was that my eyes, because it was so bright, the whites were so bright sometimes, that my eyes would kind of compensate and shift upwards, so when a dark scene would come up, it wouldn't seem as washed out as it may seem from a picture. Kind of an interesting phenomenon. I haven't really seen that very much, but it is something that I noticed. Although on paper, contrast ratio is not the best, when you're viewing it, something about how that contrast is actually working with your eyes, the bright whites, it makes it feel contrasty and saturated, and I didn't really have an issue with it. Of course, when there are dark scenes and your eyes get a chance to settle, you do notice, okay, the black levels aren't the best. So here's how it looks with all of my studio lighting on. I mean, I have a lot of lighting on here. So these are some pretty bright lights here. Yeah. So that's how it looks with it on. And here's how it looks with it off. And so obviously a lot better. Definitely the way I would want to watch a movie. So even with a little bit of ambient light, it still looks good enough, still very usable. So it doesn't have to be pitch black for it to work. Other thing I noticed was the input lag on this was very good. I'm not a gamer, so I can't test that, but I did connect this to my computer. And you know, if you move the mouse around on something with a lot of lag, it doesn't feel very good, but on this, it felt like I was kind of just using a giant monitor. So that was kind of cool. It does support 3D if you're into that. One of the questions is, can I mount the GP500 to the ceiling? And the answer is definitely yes, because that's how I have it set up right now. That's why I keep pointing to it. It's just right there. So there it is. I finally set it up. It did take a while. So here's my desk and it is there right above it. I can pan over this way and you can see that's where the screen is. Does it support HDMI ARC? And the answer is yes. That's how I have it hooked up to my AVR right now. There's only one cable going from the GP500 to the AVR. That's it. So I should also mention that the screen was provided by Elite Screens. So shout out to Elite Screens. Thank you for supporting. And it's their 92-inch roll down projector. This is the first one that I've tried like that in my living room. I do have a motorized projector from Elite Screens, and that one is awesome. I have no complaints about it. I think it's cool every time I use it. This one's a little bit more old school, and I thought I wouldn't like the fact that I have to pull it down. It kind of reminded me like the old school, you know, the ones that they have in school, you have to roll it down. But to my surprise, it is similar to that, but it still is pretty cool. It was pretty easy to set up because it's a lot lighter than the motorized one is, but anything that you have to put onto the ceiling is still pretty rough. You have to, you know, drill holes. You have to make sure you find a stud. It's a lot of work. Your shoulders will be tired like mine were, but when you have it set up and it works, it's kind of cool. I can come in here and I have a 92-inch projector in here. I think it's pretty awesome. I'm planning to do it right here. Hopefully this will fit. This is a 92-inch manual pull-down screen, and the model number here is the M9 UWH. So luckily this box from Elite Screens is not too heavy. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this open and see what's inside. It's black, all right, so that's good. That will suit the decor of the room very nicely. So this is pretty easy. It looks like just has some hooks here. So we'll see if it comes with any hardware to mount this. Let's hope so. Aha, string, manual, and screws. Screwing things up sucks, but screwing things up sucks even more. Dad joke. What's nice is that they made these ovals, so if you have to move it and slide it forward or back a little bit, you do have a little bit of wiggle room, so good thinking on their part. Look at this. It's supposed to be easy, right? Not easy. Not easy. All right, so it is up. It's out of the way of my shot, so I can still film. Not an issue. Just this string here. Let's see how she rolls. All right. That actually looks like it's going to be perfect. I'm going to have to move this lamp. All right, that's fine. That's kind of how it looks when it's rolled down. My view will be something like this. All right. Yeah, a little bit high, but it's okay. All right, so the next question I have is, how is this going to roll back up? So there we go. Go ahead and tug on this downwards. Oh. Nice. So it does have that kind of like slow thing where it doesn't just like go up super fast. So I like that. I guess they're using some kind of hydraulic thing. I'm not sure. It says here that the manual series uses a hydraulic SRM slow retract mechanism. As far as specs, it's using their Max White 2 screen and it has a 1.1 gain. So it's a pretty bright screen itself. I had no issues with the viewing angles, although in the cold weather, what you'll notice is the sides do kind of, they can bend. And so they said, you know what, use a blow dryer and it kind of warm it up and it kind of straightened out. At first when I had it, I was like, oh man, you'd watch certain scenes and you kind of see this waviness. And I was like, what is that? I'm not used to seeing that, since the other motorized one doesn't have that issue whatsoever. But this is a much less expensive screen. The other one I think is like maybe over $2,000. So this one here is currently $135. So expectations are definitely much lower. So the image on this, I would say, is satisfactory. I am spoiled with Elite Screens higher end screens, and when you pay more, you do get more. So this is more on their more budget side. So just know that when you spend less, you get less as well. But I think it's a decent value for this price. All the lines aren't gonna be perfect, and that's kind of what you can expect with some of these screens. So overall, it is a low profile. So when I don't have it down, I barely notice that it's there. It's just up here and it just kind of sits out of the way. And when I don't have the projector on and I don't have the screen down, sometimes I even forget that it's there. Then I'm like, oh, I forgot that this is here. Maybe I should watch a movie. One last thing I would say about the screen is off axis, it still looks good. I've noticed that some screens, depending on whether they're light rejecting, this one is not. It just looks good from pretty much any angle. You don't have to sit, in front of it in any particular place. Anywhere you sit, where you can see the screen, it'll look pretty good. So who is this for? I would say that this is for somebody who wants a good all-around projector, right? So this is gonna be good if it's in a brighter room, just because that white is so bright. Even though this is not the brightest projector, for some reason it kind of operates like a brighter projector. I don't know how else to explain that. So in a reasonably light controlled room, I think that you're gonna have a good experience. So you don't have to have a dedicated theater, and I don't think that anybody with a dedicated theater would opt for this projector, just because there are other ones that are better suited for that. But it would do decently well there. In a room where there is some ambient light, I think that it is bright enough in that situation. If you're a gamer, I think the latency is pretty good for a projector compared to some of these other ones that I have here. You can mount it on the ceiling, you can put in various locations so it doesn't have to be so specific, which is also good if you want to just bring this to a family party, right? You're the guy, you come with your GP500, you set up your outdoor screen, and now you have a good experience. And the built-in speakers sound pretty good as well. So I think it would be good just as an all-around projector. If you wanted one projector that can kind of do it all. So I am excited about this 4 LED system. I'm kind of curious to see what it would do in maybe their home theater applications, where maybe they can use the technology and optimize the black levels. And so I'm not sure exactly how they're gonna do it, but I have found that BenQ really offers great value at their current pricing. And so I'm always happy to recommend a BenQ projector. What I would recommend is definitely take a look at their various offerings. There's just a ton from BenQ, some that are made for dedicated home theater setups, some ultra short throws, some that are specifically for gaming, and then something like this that is pretty good all around. I will leave a link in the description to all the products that I mentioned. If you do have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Anyway, that's it. I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified when I upload new videos. That's it. Take care. Bye-bye.